When a serious villain needs defeating in the DC universe, you'll usually find Superman helping to defeat them. Because, like him or hate him, it's not really a secret that the Man of Steel is one of the strongest superheroes in all of comic books. Which usually means if you're on the knuckle end of those fists, you're gonna be ground up like a dry Ryvita. Still, this doesn't mean that every villain has faced a pummeling from the all-American alien. In fact, plenty of bad guys have come up against Supes several times and gotten off pretty much scot-free on every single occasion. The reasons for managing to avoid catching Clark Kent's steel hands vary. Many villains have plans that just can't be foiled by Superman beating them up. Not to mention the fact that our boy in blue is just one person and so can't thwart every single evil scheme alone. Though sometimes you can avoid ever facing the righteous fury of Superman by just being lucky, really. For whatever reason they did it though, I'm Will for What Culture Comics, and here are 10 villains Superman has never defeated. 10. Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord is one villain that Superman will never get to defeat because, well, he's kind of vanished from existence, really. The last time we ever saw him in a comic was in 2011. During the events of Justice League Generation Lost, Maxwell manages to mind control Superman into attacking both Batman and Wonder Woman. In retaliation, Wonder Woman snaps Lord's neck, which would break Supes free, but also cause conflict between DC's Big Three, as both the Man of Steel and the Dark Knight were furious that Diana would stoop to murdering him. Superman was probably a little pissed that he didn't get his own chance to beat on Maxwell too, but that's neither here or there. Because you can't keep a good villain down for long, even if they're dead, the smug criminal would come back to life after the events of Blackest Night. Although, funnily enough, he'd come back and then try to reform his ways, meaning that, even after his resurrection, he never really gave Superman a chance to get his revenge. 9. The Batman Who Laughs. Of the many villains Superman has faced in his time, he probably has the worst loss rate against the Batman Who Laughs. So far, Supes has taken on the Chuckling Knight a fair few times, but has never quite come out with that win we're all hoping for. In Dark Knight Metal, the Man of Steel is busy fighting some dragon jokers, it's a long story, leaving Batman and the Joker to deal with their weird conjoined alter ego. The hero comes closer to victory in the 2019 Batman-Superman crossover, where Superman tries to fool the Hellraiser-esque villain by trusting him by infecting himself with a dose of the chemical that created the Chuckling Dark Knight. Only, as it turns out, the Batman Who Laughs knew he'd do this, due to him also having the same smarts as our heroic Bruce Wayne. As such, Superman is almost made evil by the serum, and then has to witness the version of himself that exists on the Batman Who Laughs world, where he and his family have been killed. In short, it seems like pretty much every time the two have gone face to face, Superman has got his all-American ass kicked, and this doesn't seem like it'll change anytime soon. 8. Mr. Mixie Spidlick. At the first mention of this dimension-hopping, almost all-powerful rascal having never been beaten by Superman, many fans will likely just shake their heads. After all, pretty much every time we've ever seen the little prankster, Supes has managed to send him back to his own dimension by saying his name backwards before the issue has even finished. But the thing is, Superman never really beats Mixie, he just manages to put him in the proverbial broom closet to deal with later. Kicking someone back to their own dimension is the superhero equivalent of just shoving something under your bed and saying you'll sort it out tomorrow. You've also got to factor in that Mixie is never really trying to kill Superman, but just mess with him. And honestly, if Mixie really wanted Superman dead, he could just kill him like that. The one time Superman sort of defeats Mixie is when he kills him in the Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow storyline, and he's so consumed with guilt afterwards that he gets rid of his own powers and ceases to be Superman. So basically, Superman as we know him died in that battle with Mixie, which, you know, is hardly a win if you think about it. Add onto that the fact that Mixie pretty much killed himself by being an idiot rather than Superman actually beating Mixie Spitlick with his own powers, and yeah, it's not really a victory for the boy in blue. 7. Killer Frost. After reappearing in DC Comics in 2013, Killer Frost has become kind of a big deal, not because she's in a lot of comics, but because Caitlin Snow is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to her frosty abilities. The usual cliche ice powers Killer Frost has have been bumped up to 11, and she's possibly the strongest wielder of ice in the DC universe, aside from the gods. This means that when she fights Superman in a confrontation between the Justice League and the Suicide Squad, things don't go according to plan. Frost absorbs Superman's heat, and thus his life force, the second she gets near him, which knocks the hero out for the rest of the fight. Though Caitlin's intentions were to kill him, she actually puts him into hibernation for a while. But come on, you gotta admit that's pretty impressive for just another cold-based criminal. Mr. Freeze can only dream. 6. Necron. Necron is pretty much death provided a physical form, so it makes sense that he can't be beaten in a few swift punches. In fact, he schools the entire Justice League in Blackest Night, where he turns them into zombies using the Black Lantern rings, knocking Superman out of the fight before it could even really start. Though he's eventually rescued by his fellow heroes and restored to the world of the living, you can't help but be aware that Necron was simply a whole level above the Man of Steel in terms of sheer power. In the end, it took loads of people coming together, including the White Lanterns being reborn to defeat Necron, so, it makes sense that Superman was beaten down. Plus, zombie Superman. Pretty cool. 5. Amanda Waller. If there's one rule that holds true in comics, it's that Amanda Waller either has the upper hand or is about to have it. Controlling the Suicide Squad alone requires her to be able to plan for any situation and to have 7 more plans as backups just in case. But because even her most heinous plans are carried out by others, she's rarely defeated by superheroes when they try and stop her more sordid schemes. You can't really defeat Amanda Waller, only push her a few steps back. Superman has repeatedly shown that he does not agree with Waller's morals and her hiring of villains to do her dirty work. However, since the closest he's got to her is the comic where Killer Frost almost murders him, it's safe to say he hasn't gotten her to question her methods so far. 4. Bane. With Bane having destroyed the Dark Knight during the events of Nightfall, it makes sense that comic creators have tried to avoid having Superman face him. After all, Bane is strong and smart, but that doesn't do jack against the Man of Steel. So, it does make sense on a meta level, but here's the weird thing. The pair don't seem to have fought in comics, like, ever. Even in Injustice, Bane comes to Superman as a potential ally instead of an opponent, despite the fact that you'd expect even this more villainous Clark will want to throw down against such a villain. Weirdly, when you think about it, it does make sense. The reason Bane challenges Batman is because he knows the Knight is at the peak of human condition, which means he's a worthy rival. Superman can melt iron with his eyes and create ice cream with his breath, so taking him on might be less of a fun challenge and more of a death wish. Turns out Bane's real power is common sense. 3. Trigon. As one of DC's many equivalents of Satan, Trigon is a bit of a big deal, to say the least. He also exploits one of the few key weaknesses that Superman has, as our Kryptonian guardian has been repeatedly shown to struggle against magic. And given as how Trigon is one of the strongest magic users Superman could be placed against, it makes sense that Supes might struggle. There are plenty of examples showing that if Trigon were ever released into Earth, not even the entire Justice League could take him down, let alone Superman riding solo. In the 1980 run of Teen Titans, we see the entire Justice League be turned to stone by the Demon Lord, and Superman alone also gets dunked on by Trigon in the Injustice series as well. The Man of Steel has taken down entities that are, arguably stronger than the old Red Devil, but it's been made clear several times that Trigon is one villain he just isn't up to taking down. 2. Damage. Damage is one of the strongest comic characters that you've never heard of, which can be put largely down to the fact that the 2018 run of the series managed to somehow fly below everybody's radar. And honestly, this is a shame, as the comic has seen some genuinely interesting moments, like when Superman finds the rampaging Grey Goliath and decides to fight him. Though the Justice League managed to defeat Damage as a team, it's worth noting that when it's DC's Grey Hulk versus the Man of Steel, their fight appears to be completely even. In fact, had Batman not swooped in for the assist, there's a good chance the artificially created creature could have actually won against Supes. As it is, Superman alone has never beaten the Beast, and with Damage and his human alter ego since trying to reform, it's likely he never will. 1. Leviathan. After the mysterious and elusive villain Leviathan was revealed to be none other than Mark Shaw, the third person to ever hold the superhero mantle of the Manhunter, it seemed set in stone that Superman would defeat him, because Shaw had targeted Superman fairly intensely all the way through Event Leviathan, kidnapping him and trying to recruit him, as well as killing Lois Lane's father. And yet, when Superman and our collected heroes do finally get to confront Leviathan, he sticks around just long enough to provide a classic villain monologue before teleporting right the hell out of there. This means that currently, not only has Superman never defeated Mark, but Shaw actually has one over on him for being able to pull off his plans in the first place. Now, sure, it's probably only going to be a couple of months until we see the man get his face pounded into the pavement by the Man of Steel, but credit where credit is due. He managed to pull off his entire evil scheme before Superman could really do much of anything. And there you have it, folks, 10 villains Superman has never defeated. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at YouSlideDawgYou. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.